Stephen, it's so great to chat again today. It's been 15 years since we first met in your living room, and you shared a lesson about trust that I still share with my students each semester. But that's just the beginning. You and your family have impacted me for good in countless ways. When I played football at BYU, I was assigned to be the big brother of your son, Stephen, and he is such a great person and athlete. And then, of course, your son, Britton, is everything that I wanted to be in football. And though we all unsuccessfully tried to get him a scholarship at Stanford while I was out there, Britton keeps rising to the top and had a great performance in the Super Bowl last year. And then 3 months ago, here at KU, one of my colleagues pulled me aside and she said, "Hey, I heard you assigned 7 Habits of Highly Effective People to your leadership students. I am so glad you did. That is one of the greatest books of all time." And then lastly, Stephen, I have to say, one of the greatest compliments I ever received was when I was at when I was at Norris and Mary Finlayson's house. So they were friends with your parents, and Mary said to me, "You remind me of Stephen Covey." I know that was a lot, but you and your family deserve even so much more. And so I'm so grateful that I could have you on the podcast today.
Wow, what a kind introduction, Nate. Thank you, and I think the world of you, and am grateful to you for really how wonderful and kind and caring you were to my son Stephen years ago as his big brother, and to see what you're doing now and the impact you're having on students and on people is really inspiring. So thanks, Nate. Appreciate those kind words.
Well, definitely just trying to follow the example of the Coveys. And as you think back, Stephen, on all of the lessons that you've learned, are there 2 to 3 simple, practical, underappreciated lessons that you'd most like to pass along to others?
Yes, yes. I've got a few. So I was preparing for this. So here's the first, and this one's going to relate to trust. And I made my life's work on trust. Here's the insight. You could have two trustworthy people working together, both trustworthy, and yet no trust between them, even though they're both trustworthy, if neither person is willing to extend trust to the other. So if you think about it, if trust is the outcome we want, a high trust relationship, a high trust team, high trust culture, yes, we need to be trustworthy. We earn that. But by itself, it's still not enough to merely be trustworthy. It's necessary but insufficient. We also need to be trusting. We give that. So I get asked all the time, "Stephen, is trust earned or is it given?" And my response is yes. Absolutely, it is earned. We have to demonstrate it through our character, our competence, through our credibility, our trustworthiness. We're trustworthy, but we also need to be trusting, need to be willing to give the trust, to extend that trust. And here's what I find as I work with organizations really all over the world and executive teams, leadership teams. I find the bigger gap in creating trust in such teams, such organizations, is not that people are untrustworthy. Occasionally that's the issue, but more often it's that we're not trusting enough. So I think we have a real charge as leaders, as parents, as people, to not only be trustworthy, but to especially be trusting, because the act of trusting another is what unleashes their potential, their talent, their greatness, and it is what creates the trust exceptionally fast. So that'd be the first lesson. Can I give a little brief example on it?
Love it.
So I was just in Metzingen, Germany, 3 months ago, met with the CEO of Hugo Boss, the big global fashion retailer. His name is Daniel Grieder. And when he came in as the CEO of Hugo Boss, he was brought in from the outside. This is about 2 years ago. He came in and he met with his top leaders, his leadership team, top 100 or so. And again, he's brand new to them. They are to him. They're new to him. And in front of this team, he got up and he said, "Hey, team, as I see it, we have two choices. We can either spend the next year getting to know each other, deciding whether or not we can trust each other, you, whether you can trust me, whether I can trust you. We can do that, and we'll waste a year. Or we can decide from day one to trust each other. I choose the latter course. So I want each of you to know this. I trust you. Please trust me back. Together, we can build trust, and we can build it fast. Well, he led out. He not only was trustworthy, he was trusting. That was his starting point with his team. He didn't know them, but he started with, I trust you. We hire winners here. This is my starting point. It was amazing how people responded to that trust. They rose to the occasion. They performed better, but they also reciprocated and gave the trust back to him. And he built trust fast by being not only trustworthy, but by being trusting. He also told me this, that they developed together a 5-year plan. Here they, with all kinds of growth metrics, profit metrics, market share, et cetera. Well, they're 2 years into the plan, but they're on year 4 of the plan. They're way ahead of schedule because they're operating at the speed of trust. But he's the one that made it happen by trusting, and it unleashed and triggered everything else to happen with it. So that's a key insight. Not enough to be trustworthy. We also need to be trusting as leaders. And that's more often the bigger gap.
So many things are coming to my mind, and I just want to share a couple. I'll try to be brief. You mentioned the speed of trust, and this is one of the lessons that you shared with me that has always stuck with me. And you wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. When we trust, we can move really fast. And so the example that you shared was, think about an airport and all of the people that show up to an airport and wait in line to go through security. Millions of people are flying a day. We're losing billions of hours of productivity. If you multiply, that hourly wage of somebody by all the time they spend waiting in line, all because we can't trust each other. We don't trust, the airlines don't trust us, and we don't trust the other passengers. So I think the speed of trust is something that's always stuck with me. And I love this idea of not only do we have to be trustworthy, we have to extend trust. It reminds me a little bit of this concept I teach in business ethics, where it's not enough to be a moral manager. A moral manager is a person who is moral, they're ethical, they're honest, they're trustworthy. But just doing that doesn't lead to a moral or ethical organization. What the moral manager has to do is also be a moral leader and demand that of others. They have to expect others to be ethical and hold them accountable. And so I love this idea of, if we want to develop trust, not only do we have to be trustworthy, but we have to, and that's hard to live a whole life of, being honest and ethical and doing what's right. But then we have to be vulnerable and extend that trust to somebody else, because they might let us down. They might not pull through. But if we never extend that trust to others, if we're never vulnerable, then we can't build that trust. So I love that lesson.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a risk in trusting, but there's a risk in not trusting too.
Exactly.
I think that more often not trusting is the greater risk. So be smart about it. I'm not asking you to blindly trust anyone and everyone. You have to be contextual and, use good judgment, but find the ways to lead out in extending trust to others. And you'll be amazed at how you'll create more trust by giving trust.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Any other lessons?
Here's a second lesson. I've learned that the key to trust, the key to leadership, the key to influence is to always lead from the inside out, as opposed to outside in. In other words, that means I go first. I don't wait on others to do it. I don't wait on the systems or the structures to change or the leader to change. The whole idea is that enduring influence is created from the inside out. So my job as a leader is to go first. Someone needs to go first. Leaders go first. And yet it's so easy for us to say, hey, we'll build trust around here as soon as the boss changes, as soon as we get a new CEO, as soon as this happens or that happens. And that's an outside in approach. They're waiting on others to change, or on the company to change, or the industry, or what have you. And those are all real factors. So I'm not naive to that. But the way that we really bring about change is we work from the inside out. We become the model ourselves, who can then become the mentor to others, and we ripple out like a ripple effect metaphor. We go first, and all great change is from the inside out. That's what's enduring. Great influence is from the inside out. We model it. We model the very thing that we want to see, and we go first. And it's very easy to kind of wait on everybody else. So it's really a challenge to each of us, and an opportunity to lead out and be the change that we want to be. You know, as Gandhi said, let us become the change that we seek in this world. That's in an inside out approach. And I think that it's something we kind of know intuitively, but I'm convinced it is the best way forward. And it's how we're going to have greater influence with people. I just was with the CEO and the top leadership team of Wegmans Food Markets, big grocery store chain in the Northeast. And they've got this great organization, great company, all these grocery stores, and they got this great reputation. And they just were ranked for, I can't remember how many years in a row on the, the top and the reputation quotient index in the top 10 of all brands in the United States. The huge trust with customers in the marketplace. And yet, here's what I find. The reason that they have trust with customers and in the marketplace externally is because they first have built that trust with their own people internally in the workplace. They built it from the inside out. And their own people trust them, and they trust their people, and people respond to that. They feel trusted, and trusted people can go build trust with customers more naturally and abundantly than, it'd be incongruent to ask people who you don't trust to go build trust with customers. So it's inside out with them. And the key to winning in the marketplace is because they're first winning in the workplace with their own people, their own team. They're working from the inside out. That's true of an organization. And it's true of each of us as leaders. Leaders go first. It's inside out. And that's the key to influence.
So in my class, I talk about, some of the leadership characteristics that are associated with high performance leadership. And one of those that this reminds me of is the proactive personality. Effective leaders, they don't just sit around and wait for things to happen. But I love your framing of inside out and I go first. And my family, ever since I started doing this podcast, there was the very first interview I did was with Kellen Moore, the football coach, and the all-time winningest college quarterback coach, and now he's the offensive coordinator for the Chargers. And Kellen said that when he was in high school, his football coach, he had a legendary high school football coach who was actually his father, and his father gave him the same pregame speech every Friday night. He gave the team the same speech, and it was the 10 football fundies. And so every week it was, pad level and setback comeback. The setback is going to come. And when the setback comes, get ready for the comeback. Since then, my wife and I have been thinking, what are our family fundamentals? And so throughout this podcast, and then just from, things we've learned out throughout our life, we've started collecting what we are calling our family fundamentals. And I really like this. We go first, leaders go first, I go first. And that's something I'm going to try to encourage our family to adopt as a fundamental. We go first, I go first.
That's right. Right. So if we want more respect, be the first to show respect. If we want more openness, more transparency, be the first to be open and transparent. If we want more trust, be the first to give trust. Leaders go first. And that's the idea. And I think that's empowering.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait on anybody else. And it's an inside out approach to leadership and really to all of life.
Excellent. Any other lessons you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Yes. One last lesson. And this is something that I think is kind of a reflection of this going first. But the premise is this, that as leaders, as parents, as people, try to treat others according to their potential rather than their behavior. And as we do that, people tend to live up to that potential. tends to bring out the best in them, and they rise to the occasion. It's very easy to naturally treat people according to their behavior because that's, feels responsive and appropriate, but we're aware of that. But what a leader does is they see the potential inside of people, sometimes different than the behavior that's being manifest. They see the potential, and then they communicate the potential to the other person so that they come to see it in themselves. Then they develop the potential. Then they unleash it. They extend trust to them. They give them an opportunity. And in the process of doing that, treating people according to their potential, you help that person live up to their potential. I think this is really important in parenting. It's very easy to get trapped into a cycle of kind of distrust and suspicion, perhaps with our kids. I was with a parent one time, and the father said to his son, they were in a cycle of collusion, and the son was, behaved badly, and the father had kind of labeled the son as, you're not trustworthy. And then the father said to the son, why did you behave this way? And the son replied, well, Dad, that's the way untrustworthy kids like me behave. In other words, he was living down to the label that his father had given him, maybe accurately at the time, but maybe a way of helping that child shift is to treat them according to their potential, not just their behavior. Treat them as if they can be trusted. Maybe not in everything, but in certain things, and some things, at least start with that. Find an opportunity to treat them according to their potential, and they tend to rise up to that potential, and they become that person. And again, I'm not being Pollyannish or naive on this. I recognize we have to deal in the real world and reality, but I still find that this is what leadership is all about: seeing and communicating people's potential and their greatness, their potential for greatness, so clearly that they come to see it in themselves, and we can help unleash it. And that's real leadership. I think that's great parenting. I think that's great being a great friend, helping others live up to their potential. So the key is how we see them. And I love the quote by Thoreau. He said, it's not what we look at that matters. It's what we see. Do we see the potential in others and help them see it in themselves? Think of Michelangelo when he carved the statue of David, one of the great works of art in the world. He said this, he said, I saw the angel in the marble, and I carved until I set him free. In other words, he saw that potential right there. And what if we apply that idea into people, seeing their potential and treating them accordingly? We'll tend to unleash it.
I just love this framing. In psychology, they call this the Pygmalion effect. You hold people to high expectations, and people tend to rise or fall to the level of your expectations. So that's a very important principle. And I teach that. This framing that you've done is just that much more inspirational to me, of don't treat people according to their behavior, treat them according to their potential. So this is a shift now, that whenever I teach Pygmalion effect, this will be the new phrase. I'm still going to, I'm going to teach the concept. I'm going to teach the principle, and I'm going to add on this extra bit. And again, to me, this is just that much more inspirational.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. And I agree. I understand this concept, Pygmalion effect, Galatea effect, others idea, but it's real. From a practical basis, people tend to respond to that. Some of the great works of literature have this in there. Think of Les Miserables, and the Valjean steals the candlesticks.
Yeah.
The bishop there doesn't treat him according to his behavior, which is, you're a thief. He treats him according to his potential. Here, take the silverware with it. Become an honest man. And he does. He lives up to it. I think it's more than just in literature. I think it's in life, in relationships.
Well, Stephen, this has just been just such a pleasure for me. I love chatting with you every chance I get. You inspire me. You are a true trust and inspire type of leader. Your new book that I am reading and have already enjoyed so much. I hope to see you again soon. I hope to chat again soon. I hope to see you either in Lawrence at Allen Fieldhouse or in the football stadium for a game. But regardless, I'm just so grateful for your friendship and kindness and that we could have this conversation today.
Thanks so much, Nate. I feel the same about you and think the world about you and always have. And I always knew that you were destined for great things like you're doing now. So delighted to be on your podcast, Mickles and Dimes. Love it. And excited to share these insights and learnings that from my, that are important to me with others. So thanks for this opportunity.